What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. We've got a good one for you. We apologize for the late upload, but this one, it's just going to be a quick little recap podcast. I can't promise it's going to be quick, but just stay tuned because we've got a lot to catch you guys up on and ourselves too. So it should be fun, should be good. Stay tuned, everyone.
Steps into it, passes, caught! Touchdown! Play clock at 5. Pass
Back today, so I got time to be tripping and writing no love song. Yeah, writing no love song. We all experience love loss. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast, NFL edition. I believe this is episode 3. Could be wrong, but I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and as always, I'm here with my good friend Parker. Parker, what is up?
What's up, everybody? I'm just glad to be back. You know, it's been a minute, right? It's been about 2 weeks at this point since the last NFL podcast. So
yeah, we had a very bad week last week, just personal sickness and just a little busy with personal things. So we apologize for that. But yeah, it was everywhere last week. So we apologize, but we are back and in stride, hopefully, as far as today goes with this recap. And then honestly, because of this recap, this is probably going to be the recap episode and the NFL episode kind of stacked on top of each other. And then obviously We'll be back on normal schedule on Thursday with the college episode, which I feel like we say this every episode, Parker, but another good one.
Oh, yeah, because like every week, or no, not even every week. I feel like every day there's something new happening. Like when I tell you, I woke up this morning, I saw Joshua Dobbs to the Vikings. I saw James Harden going to get traded to the Clippers. I mean, like, it's just every single day now there's a new story that is happening. There's something new that is popping up all over the sports world, and it gives us more to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, in the NFL, as far as the NFL goes specifically too, I mean, with the trade deadline being today, I mean, not a lot happened compared to, like, you know, the most common, like, trade deadline trades, but the trades that did happen, at least in my opinion, were pretty big trades. So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about those. But I guess one thing to point out is if you notice one of our co-hosts or one half of the podcast here, if you notice a little bit anything different about his audio, Parker, do you want to tell him what is up?
You best believe this audio better sound good. If this audio doesn't sound crisp, like I should be doing ASMR, then I'll be outrageous. The amount of money I spent this past weekend in dedication to this podcast, dude. The dedication to this podcast is unreal now, and I have just completely kind of sold all in on it.
And in simpler terms, Parker bought a MacBook and a mic, so Parker should be sounding very good now from now on. So hopefully we can get some two crisp, clean audios for you guys instead of some crappy jail phone audio. But
yeah, right. And, I mean, there's so many buttons on here, so I mean, if I'll play it back, obviously, but if anybody has any like tips, pointers, anything that I should do differently to even make it sound better, I am all ears because I have no idea what any of these gadgets on this mic mean at all.
All right, well, Parker, I guess to get us started, let's go ahead and go over the week we missed, which is week 7. What did you notice? Anything in week 7? What do you feel is important to talk about that we should maybe let the viewers know in case they missed it, or just to kind of bring up?
Yeah, I think with this week 7, I did not watch too much of it. I was kind of in and out of the house, but I did have it on. The game that I mostly watched that was probably the game of the week on week 7 was, you wouldn't have thought so, but the Colts and the Browns, an absolute shootout. Cleveland won 39-38. Man.
What a hell of a game.
Oh my gosh, yes, dude. And like I said, like I didn't watch it. I didn't watch all of it, and I was kind of just in and out of the house, but dude, you had everything. You had Gardner Minshew throwing touchdown after touchdown, big play after big play. You had two running backs, Jerome Ford and Jonathan Taylor, kind of returning into form. I mean, defense was everywhere. There was so many defensive touchdowns, special team touchdowns. It was just back and forth the entire game. And, I mean, I know that they came up, they lost to the Browns, talking about the Colts. They lost to the Browns, and then this past week 8, they lost to the Saints. But what I've watched the Colts back-to-back weeks. There's a lot of season left, and I mean, obviously not having Richardson is devastating, but Minshew has done a solid job being that starting quarterback, and he is at least making this team competitive. I'm more competitive than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I feel like Minshew, one of the big things with Minshew is like he's always talked about as like one of those QBs who could start if he was on a specific like QB needy team. Because, in all reality, he's really not that bad. Like, he's not, when you look at his stats or his base level stats, like, you don't see a QB that you think would be like a journeyman backup. So it's nice to see him starting again because, I mean, that one year he had with the Jags where he got his Minshew Mania nickname, I mean, that was a hell of a season by him. So it's always really nice to see him play and, get some reps in when he can. I mean, and like you said, in that Browns game, he had a it wasn't like anything eye-popping by any means, but he had a solid game. And not to mention, by the way, on the other side with no Deshaun Watson, P.J. Walker, the way he led the Browns down the field on that last drive of the game and a score on a Kareem Hunt touchdown with 15 seconds left, I mean, that was some clutch gameplay by two backups, if I'd say so myself, in that game.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, to me, you get Deshaun Watson and you are just where he's at with his career, you're kind of just doomed from the start. And, so they get Deshaun Watson, and they just haven't really picked up any ground yet. But then Deshaun Watson kind of goes down, Nick Chubb goes down, and now your team is in complete shambles. But I know they lost this past week to the Seahawks, but I mean they're sitting at 4-3, and they're getting the job done. They're like the Jets that I've talked about so much this year because it just blows my mind that they're still getting the job done. They continue to find a way to win, and I mean, especially more the season goes on and the playoff picture starts forming, you see what teams are actually going to try and make a push, what teams are going to sell. They're going to tank, whatever, but it looks like the Browns, they could be looking for that wild card spot.
Yeah, the Browns are looking good for sure. Another game that I noticed, and I feel like I kind of have to mention this mainly because, it's my team, but the Vikings taking down the 49ers 22-17. I don't know if you watched that game, Parker, but I watched it, and the score, in my opinion, does not do justice to how good the Vikings played. Because the Vikings embarrassed the 49ers, and it was a hell of a game to watch as a Vikings fan.
And that's another great just kind of thing to talk about. I mean, the Vikings, I know we talked about it, the slow start, what is gonna become of the Vikings. Are they officially gonna tank? Are they gonna sell? Well, now they are sitting at 3 straight wins, right? They beat, arguably, which I know the 49ers are kind of going through a rough patch, which we'll talk about that later. The 49ers are going through a rough patch, but you get a win against arguably the best team in the NFL. And now, I mean, 3 straight wins. You are 4-4 now on the season. But, obviously, there is a bigger storyline in Minnesota.
Oh.
Do you want to talk about it?
Minnesota Vikings QB Kirk Cousins tears his Achilles and is out for the season. It hurts. It hurts because not only are we out of our QB1 for the season, who was playing so phenomenal, Kirk was having a hell of a season. Kirk was having his best season in a Minnesota Vikings jersey by far. And to know not only is he not coming back for this season, but to know that he's probably not coming back at all, it hurts because, he was performing really good. He's a great leader.
this is him tearing his Achilles is kind of signing off his contract for the Vikings. He's moving on.
It is. I think it is because not only it was his contract year. I'm sure he was playing for a new contract, which even then, if he stayed healthy for the whole season, I'm not quite sure if we would have kept him anyways. But I mean, a torn Achilles, that's just such a rough injury to get. And it's such a hard injury to come back from.
With Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's just such a hard injury to come back from unless you are Aaron Rodgers and you're taking magical mushrooms you find in the forest somewhere. But, I mean, it's rough. Like, it's hard. And it sucks. Again, it sucks. And I think him tearing his Achilles, I think he knows it. I think all Vikings fan knows it. I think the team knows it, too. I think that was his last game in a Minnesota Vikings jersey, and I think I think he's done with the team.
And that's unfortunate, man. That he all he wants to do is win. He literally that is all he is about. He just has that mentality that you can't find in a lot of quarterbacks that just all they want to do is win. They don't care what it takes. They just want to win. They get pissed off at themselves when they make mistakes.
And he's a great leader.
What they've done wrong.
And he's a great leader. And like you said, he takes accountability for literally everything. He could have a game where the receivers just drop every single ball thrown to them, and then he'll blame himself in the press conference and say, I should have thrown better passes. I should have thrown better catchable passes. It's my fault. I could have played better. And that's just a QB you want on your team. That's just a QB that the whole entire locker room is going to respect. And yeah, it's just it's horrible.
But and now I know you're a Vikings fan, so I really want to hear your take on it. Today, the Vikings have traded for Arizona quarterback Joshua Dobbs, who since Kyler Murray is expected to play again this season. So I see where the Cardinals were like, oh, you can have him. We got our quarterback back now. What do you... Because me personally, I don't think Dobbs was the guy that the Vikings should have went after. But what do you think about Dobbs going to Minnesota?
So, I am conflicted with Dobbs because at the start of the season, even though they didn't start with a very good record and an eye-popping record, if you look at how Dobbs performed as like a single person, he actually did very well. And that's on an Arizona team who is quite literally like, I don't even know what's going on with that team right now. Like, that is how in shambles they are. And he was performing very well in the first few weeks. And, he kind of took a step back. And I think that's why they were so quick to get rid of him when Kyler became healthy, because of the stretch of bad games he's having. But again, that is on a terrible Arizona team. And now he's getting...
Terrible O-line.
I'm sorry?
Terrible O-line.
Oh, yeah, and terrible O-line. And now he's getting traded to a Minnesota team who I think if you asked a lot of people would probably say is one of the best young defenses, and if not one of the best defense. Or did I say defense the whole time? I meant offense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And one of, if not the best, offenses in the league with, Jay Jetta's Hawk, Addison, KJ Osborne, who's a respectable receiver in his own right, Madison, who can be a good running back. We've seen flashes. We've also seen the other side of that. But he's getting put into an offense that is quite literally the complete opposite compared to Arizona. And I honestly think he could shine in an offense like ours. I think he could perform very well because, he has a good arm on him. He can throw the ball if he needs to, which I think he's shown as well. Him and Hollywood Brown had a hell of a connection in the first few weeks, and just to reiterate it again, I think Dobbs could be very good at the Minnesota Vikings offense, and he's got some legs on him too. He can get out of that pocket if he has to.
And I kind of view this whole thing as something kind of similar. I mean, different in their own ways, but sort of similar to Geno Smith in Seattle. Right, so Seattle trades Russell Wilson. to the Broncos. The Broncos give them Drew Lock. Drew Lock. Drew Lock is he was supposed to be the starter in Seattle, and Geno Smith kind of just took that job away from him. And now the Seattle is not a team that you're gonna put in Super Bowl conversation, but they have done respectable for what they have been given. They've done a respectable job over the past 2 seasons, and it's because Geno Smith kind of found his footing, found his place in the NFL, exactly what he does good, what he does wrong, and stay away from those wrongdoings. And I could easily see, like, Joshua Dobbs, like you said, he's having a good season. He 1,500 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but you see these spurts of really good quarterback play from Dobbs.
Which, by the way, a lot of those interceptions came in the last, 2 weeks.
Right, yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. In the past, yeah, well, no, actually, in the past 4 weeks, all 5 of them have came.
There you go.
The first 4 games, he didn't throw a pick.
There you go.
So you got to think, like, maybe, just maybe, Dobbs is, him going to the Vikings is going to be that kind of resurgence that he needs, that actual just right offense, that right scheme plan that fits him perfectly, and he could succeed. Me personally, whenever I saw that Cousins went down, and I was kind of just sitting there pondering who would be the perfect replacement for the situation that they're giving. Who's pretty low value, but can also get the job done. The first name that popped into my head, and I still honestly think, no disrespect to Joshua Dobbs, I think that the Vikings probably should have went after, is Ryan Tannehill. Now, again, Tannehill has his faults on his own. He is not perfect by any means. I want to make that clear. But if you want somebody that is gonna at least fill the role of Kirk Cousins as best as possible, just to get through the season, whether Cousins comes back or not, it's Ryan Tannehill. They practically have the same exact play style. Cousins is much better, obviously, but if as far as pocket presence, just the awareness, the mobility, everything about Cousins and Tannehill, they match up pretty similar. And obviously, Will Levis this past week kind of proved himself, which that's something else we can kind of talk about later. Tannehill might be out of a job in Tennessee, and he's gonna be pretty low value, especially for someone like the Vikings who are just trying to find somebody. You know, I felt like just in the moment, or just over the past couple of days, I've thought that Tannehill was the right answer for Minnesota, and they were going to go that way.
Yeah, what I will say is I don't know if me personally, I can't speak for the fan base, but I know me personally, I probably wouldn't have been that happy if we went out and got Tannehill. The other name I saw that was kind of in the running of, it was either Joshua Dobbs or this guy that I'm about to name. Excuse me. As far as I know, according to everything I saw, it was either Joshua Dobbs or Jameis Winston. And
is he still in New Orleans?
He is. Yeah, he's the backup to Derek Carr. And honestly, I wouldn't have been mad with either Joshua Dobbs or Jameis Winston, because I think they can both be successful in our system. And with the targets that we have, I think they can both be successful. And we've seen Winston's arm before. I mean, he had plenty of years as a starter to show it, and he's got a good arm on him. He can throw that ball. And with the receivers we have, who seem to be constantly open when they want to be, I mean, that just sounds like Winston's heaven right there.
But the only thing with that, the only thing I do want to mention, if they were to get Winston, obviously Madison is not having the year that Vikings organization thought he would. So they are a extremely, extremely, extremely one-sided passing offense. The biggest downfall of Jameis Winston, I don't know if you remember, but his interceptions were unbelievably bad. Like, I think one season in Tampa Bay, he had more interceptions on the year than he did touchdowns. Again, now I would put this Minnesota Vikings team over those teams he had back in Tampa, but still, he does like to sling the ball. Vikings have a passing offense. it could just be a recipe for disaster if you guys were to get Winston, just because of his turnover-prone play style.
Yeah, I mean, I remember his last year in Tampa Bay when he threw for 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions on the year, which is absurd.
Right.
I mean, that's like 2 touchdowns per game and 2 interceptions per game.
And so it's like, I mean, still, 30 interceptions is really good. Like, if you throw I'm sorry, not 30, that's not, no. If you throw 30 touchdowns, that is really good. If you have a 30 touchdown season, you had a pretty solid season.
Oh, yeah.
But is it worth all the interceptions?
No, not at all.
And so that's my only thing with Winston. I feel like as soon as he left Tampa, he was destined to be a backup because of that reason.
Yeah, completely understandable. You know, as far as us talking about like Winston and his kind of fall from grace, there's a name that's popping up, kind of in reports and everything like that, saying, "Hey, is this guy maybe not as good as we all thought? Is this guy a system QB? Is it just because of the team and the talent around him?" And maybe you know who I'm about to mention here. But the man I'm talking about is Mr. Irrelevant himself, Brock Purdy. Is he a fraud?
I'm pretty sure like 2 weeks ago, our last episode, NFL episode, I think I might have said this exact thing. Now I'm not going to go over everything again, but you got rid of Garoppolo, you got rid of Trey Lance. You said Brock Purdy was going to be your guy. He showed flashes of goodness in the playoffs last year. Now, you put him in situations where he is the main point of your offense. In the playoffs, he was not. He was your all's quarterback, yes. But the offense was ran through McCaffrey, and it still is. I say it is. But now you're seeing in these situations like they did against the Bengals this past week, where the Bengals were just kind of just putting it on them. They just were outscoring them. Purdy has to show what he's about. It's happened the last 3 weeks. The 49ers are on a 3-game losing streak. They went from the most untouchable team in the NFL to being like, okay, well, are they even that good? So Purdy is being put in the spotlight now because he's supposed to be the guy to get him out of this. The 49ers chose him for this reason exactly. To me, I think that I don't want to say he's a fraud, but I think the 49ers messed up. I think they could have done better with either Garoppolo or Lance going into the season.
Yeah, and also just something I've noticed, at least in the past 3 games, that defense, which is, I think, what most people would consider probably the best defense in the league, which, by the way, we'll talk about it later in the episode, is now even better after today. They've looked kind of lackluster in these losses that they have. They're allowing quite a bit of points to be put up on themselves, and I feel like they find themselves down in the last 3 games, and it forces Brock Purdy to be put into these passing situations, which he's obviously not doing too hot in.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they absolutely murdered the Cowboys 4 weeks ago. And that was kind of just like because before then let me pull up their schedule. They played the Steelers, the Rams, Giants, and Cardinals. Some of those are good teams, but they're nothing serious. But then they play the Cowboys, who are Cowboys for some reason. I don't know why, but they're in the Super Bowl conversation that they could potentially win it this year, and they just beat the living hell out of Dallas. 49ers are. And after that game, the 49ers were on top of the NFL. There was nobody touching them. The Chiefs couldn't touch them. The Bills couldn't touch them. The Eagles themselves couldn't touch them. I want to know if they were just kind of riding that high way too long instead of realizing that we are still playing against professional NFL players, National Football League players. If we don't take them lightly, they are still going to beat us to the ground. It doesn't matter how good or bad that team is. They're still professional athletes. And now we're kind of seeing that unfold. And now, obviously, you do have some injuries. I know McCaffrey kind of has been in and out of some type of injury. Debo, he can't seem to get healthy this season. So, I mean, offensively, you do see some pretty major offensive injuries. But, I mean, defense is... I mean, you're putting the same 11 out there every week. And you're still continuously letting teams do whatever they want to you. Now, it's not blowouts, but... Besides this Bengals game last week, but I mean, you're letting teams make you play from behind, and obviously they're not a team.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I don't.
No, you're good.
Really funny to me, at least. I don't know if you saw it or noticed it yet, but in all 3 of their losses, they only scored 17 in all 3.
They did, didn't they? I'm looking at their schedule right now. Yeah, how about that? I mean, and that means something too. I mean, if you're only limited to. In losses alone, you were only limited to 17 points. Like, you're not going to win that game. If you get put behind, if you're not a team that plays from behind, and you're only going to put up 17 points when you are playing from behind, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster, if you ask me, especially as the season gets closer to the end.
Yeah, and if you look at them, too, like, that's not a team that's used to playing from behind. Like...
No,
if you look at Brock Purdy and his like career thus far, like he's not used to playing behind. So I mean, is that something to mention too? Like they're just not used to playing from behind, so they just don't know what to do. I know it's I know it's weird to say because you should always be prepared to play from behind if you have to. But like, I mean, this is like.
But no, you see
bad.
You see the same thing. You see the same thing happening with the Cowboys, and this is a prime example of. What happened when they played the 49ers, the 40 and Arizona, when they lost to Arizona too. They score first, the other team scores first, and it just like completely throws your entire game plan off. Like you don't know, you aren't sticking to your bases. You are trying to do way too much when you're only down seven points, which is just one touchdown. You are just you're acting like the game is on the line to win the Super Bowl, and that's not the case. Right it's the first quarter. They scored on the opening drive. It's 7-0 with 10 minutes left in the first quarter, and you're already snowballing, and it just continues to go worse. The same thing happened with the Cowboys. Anytime they are playing from behind, it just one thing goes wrong, and it all goes wrong. And I see the same thing with 49ers.
Right. Well. Now that we mentioned them, I feel like it's kind of it would be nice to speak on them just a little bit, just to kind of give the fans of this team out there just some, joy.
Oh, yeah, let's just blow their heads up even more.
Yeah. The Cowboys have looked pretty good the past 2 games.
3 games,
now,
honestly.
Honestly, in the last 3 out of the last 4 games, they've looked pretty good. One thing I've noticed just looking at their schedule alone, if they win the game, they win the game. And if they lose the game, they fucking lose the game. You know what I mean? Like, they either blow out a team or they just get destroyed. And that is so confusing to look at. To look at a team and be like, wait. How do you only get blown out, or how do you only blow out a team?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's to what I was just saying. Like, I think as soon as you have a game plan in your head, and if it does not directly go the way that you are thinking it's going to go, it's like you just completely forget how to play the sport you're getting paid millions to do. And I think that obviously that has to go to Dak Prescott. We've seen it for his entire career in the playoffs and the regular season. He chokes majorly under pressure. He does not know how to handle pressure. He does not know. He just makes irrational decisions. When, as you saw last year in the playoffs, the sliding down in midfield with 5 seconds on the clock, not waiting for the referee to touch the ball to spike it, or spike it. So I'm like, again, whenever like you said, when their offense is rolling, they look like the most unstoppable team in the NFL. They have just beat the brakes off of so many teams as I'm looking at their schedule.
I mean,
and they're a really good home team as well. They don't lose at home.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, actually, it looks like they struggle when they go away. Now that you just mentioned that, yeah.
I did see something on ESPN the other day. They've won like I don't know, 12 or 13 straight home games or something like that. So they're really good at home.
Oh damn. So yeah, one thing I want to mention about the Cowboys is like Dak Prescott. I mean, we've talked about it before on one of these NFL episodes. He's just so hit or miss. I mean, if you look at that Cardinal game performance and that 49ers game performance, he played like one of the worst QBs in the league. He didn't even play like a starter. And then you look at all the other games, like the Patriots game or the Rams game or the Chargers game. He played great. He played like an all-pro quarterback. And it's like which one are you? Like pick one. Like stay with what you got to be more consistent than that.
Having a quarterback like that, it's not going to win you a Super Bowl. I'll tell you that right now.
No. And look, they play the Eagles this week, and listen, if they're not on their game, and it's at Philly, so it's an away game. It's in Philadelphia, so that's already like 90% harder than if it was at home. But on top of that, it's the Philadelphia Eagles, who are a powerhouse team, and they probably will be for years to come. But, I mean, they better be on their A game in that game, and Dak Prescott better be ready to play a hell of a game again, because that opposing offense, I'll tell you this, that opposing offense is going to give them some problems, and they could see themselves in a crazy deficit if they don't come to play in that game.
Yeah, I know I'm looking forward to it. I mean, if you look at last year, the first game, the Cowboys and Eagles are in the same division. They play each other twice.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I didn't mention it, but this game is a crazy rivalry. These two fan bases hate each other.
Hate each other. I mean, I used to be a part of this rivalry. I have now gone on to bigger and better things, the Chicago Bears. But they the first game they played last year, Dak Prescott didn't play. So we didn't really get to see two quarterbacks going at it. Or maybe I think it might have been Jalen Hurts didn't play, I'm sorry. The second game, Dak Prescott didn't play. So these two, Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott, they haven't matched up in a long time. We have yet to see the Cowboys at the best they can be and the Eagles at the best they can be. And, it's like, okay, well, if you had to ask me, the Eagles are going to come out and they're going to smack the Cowboys right in the mouth. We're going to see Dak Prescott, can he bring his boys, his team, back to a spot where they can stay in this ball game and have a chance to win the ball game, or like I said, they're going to just snowball out of control, and Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift, are just going to do whatever they want against a beaten-up Cowboys team that can't battle adversity.
Yeah, the Cowboys are always repeatedly one of the most interesting teams in the league, purely off of
year in and year out.
Yeah, purely off of just always having to ask the question, are they good or are they terrible? And it's horrible. It's horrible. I'm not even a Cowboys fan, and I find myself being mad that they can't just choose which one they want to be.
And it doesn't help that they continuously be they're all they have to battle is the Eagles every year. I mean, I know the Giants had a solid year last year, and I think the year before that the Commanders did maybe. But I mean, like, they're always going to be in the running just because how shitty their division is. And so, like, that makes everybody want to say, "Oh, the Cowboys are good." They're 5-2 right now, or 4-2. It's because they four out of their games automatically are usually automatic wins. So I mean, it's just the Cowboys are just I don't even know what to word. They're just so glazed.
Alrighty, Parker. Well, moving on. I have a question for you, and this is going to start off our next topic.
What's that?
Is Will Levis him?
This is I'm excited to talk about this because I am not a Titans fan, but and I didn't watch this game, But man, I watched the highlights, and it looked like that was a electric offense. I mean, Derrick Henry was running the ball, kind of just King Henry style. Will Levis was just slinging that thing. DeAndre Hopkins finally kind of, showed spurts of the old DeAndre Hopkins. And it's like, hold up, wait a minute. I mean, obviously, it's one game. It is one game, and you don't know. It was against a subpar Falcons team. But I am excited to see what Will Levis, especially coming from Kentucky, what he can. Is he serious? Is he a real quarterback? Like, I know, because that was the whole thing at Kentucky, that people did start to turn against him, especially that second year at Kentucky. They said he couldn't throw the ball. He couldn't. He was all he was a big body, and if it wasn't a check down or a 50-yard pass downfield, he was no good. He couldn't find those little middle route slants. We finally saw that. We saw that from him, and it's not at Kentucky, but it's even bigger. It's in the NFL. So I'm excited. I really hope that he does succeed. I think it's funny. Not to kind of. It doesn't mean anything. I find it funny that he changed his number to 8. The same number that Lamar Jackson wears at Baltimore is 8. He changed his number to that, so now it's and just another kind of trivia fact for the rivalry, Louisville, Kentucky.
That might have been an involuntary switch though. Like, what number did he wear at Kentucky?
7.
Yeah, that might have been an involuntary switch then, because Malik Willis wears the number 7, so he probably just came.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, he was probably forced to change his number.
And that's another thing.
Ironically funny though.
Tannehill, obviously, going into the season, Tannehill was obviously the starter, and Tannehill wasn't getting the job done. And Will Levis he got drafted. Well, first of all, his draft stock tanked. They had absolutely tanked. But then he got drafted to the Titans, and they were like, you're not even the backup, dude. You're the third string. You're behind Malik Willis. If Tannehill does go down for some reason, Malik Willis is our guy. We drafted him, 2 years now? Or 3 years, he is going to be our guy. He hasn't got a shot yet, and we're going to see what he can do. Levis beats out Willis. Tannehill goes down, and with the small sample size, the small opportunity that Levis got, he capitalized on it. And I mean, we don't know until Sunday what else is what's gonna continue the saga.
Yeah, I do feel bad for Willis though, because he hasn't gotten too much like playing time and too much like opportunity, and that fan base fucking hates him. I mean, you said you didn't watch the game. I watched a little bit of it, and one of the parts I managed to catch was Malik Willis. Malik Willis was only in the game for a few snaps, but his first snap that he had was a terrible snap by the center, and it went past Malik, and Malik kind of fumbled the snap. And I don't remember if Tennessee recovered it or if the Falcons recovered it, but immediately after that play, that stadium just started booing the hell out of Malik Willis. It's at Tennessee, mind you. So these are Tennessee fans booing Malik Willis. And I'll tell you this, the Titans did not take too kindly to that after the game. They let it known on social media. Will Levis, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, they all let their disagreement with the fans well known after the game, which
they should.
Yeah, which shows a lot though for Will Levis to stick up for his teammate, who is, compared to him at least, a quote veteran in the league. So I mean, it shows a lot of leadership by Levis to stick up for his teammate like that, especially a guy who he's actively competing with for playing time at this point.
Right, exactly.
But as a Louisville fan, I can honestly say the guy's in the league now, so I don't give a shit if he's good or bad. If he's good, right, that's awesome. That's awesome. He's not at Kentucky anymore. I know he personally still doesn't like Louisville. Whatever. I don't care. It's L's down every day. you can go to any like Louisville or Kentucky player in the league and ask them if they like Kentucky or Louisville, and I guarantee you they'll say no. That's a rivalry built into their minds forever. But personally, as a fan, at least, I can at least show support for a guy who plays good.
But and then also, I'm really quick before we move on, not trying to get into too much fantasy talk, but if I know he's been dropped in so many leagues just because I've seen it. If for whatever reason you can find DeAndre Hopkins on the waiver wire this week, an automatic pickup, an automatic start, because I know he only had 4 catches, but Will Levis did look to Hopkins a lot, and he kind of was the Cooper Kupp of the Titans. You know, like when Matthew Stafford needs a receiver and just to get out of trouble, he looks to Cooper Kupp. Will Levis looked to Hopkins a lot, so I can see big things for DeAndre Hopkins coming here in the next couple weeks. Just if Levis, obviously, if he stays the starter, just because of that safety valve kind of mentality that he has, he looks for the veteran receiver to bail him out whenever he gets into situations.
Yeah, I mean, he only had 4 receptions, but he had 4 receptions for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean,
which is crazy.
If that doesn't say anything about how good D-Hop is and how underutilized he's been all year leading up to this point, I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing here? The guy is clearly still one of the best receivers in the league, and he's still got it. And a lot of people wrote him off when he wasn't having that great of a season, and he's still there. He's definitely still there, and it's nice. It's nice to see too, because I think a lot of we saw some issues in Arizona with D-Hop and Kyler. We saw a lot of sideline arguments with D-Hop just telling Kyler to just trust me, like just throw it up to me. Like I have some of if not the best hands in the league. Just throw the ball to me, and I promise you, I will go up and catch the ball. And I mean, personally, I don't know why you wouldn't believe D-Hop, because he's proven over and over and again that he can, in fact, go up and catch the ball. And Kyler just seemed to not agree with that. And D-Hop eventually moved on, went to Tennessee, and it didn't look like they believed them either. And then we see a fresh face in the league, a rookie. We see a guy in Will Levis who, I mean, essentially has nothing to lose, right? And D-Hop, maybe says, hey, Will, throw it to me. I promise you I got you. And Will in his head is probably like, you know what? Fuck it. I got nothing to lose. This might be the only playing time I get. So, fuck it. He throws it up to D-Hop, and D-Hop makes the most of it and makes Will Levis look amazing, which, before anybody takes that out of context, Will Levis played amazing individually as well. But, to have that type of trust in a veteran that Will Levis had in D-Hop, I mean, it's definitely something nice to see, because I'm sure D-Hop was proud too.
Right.
And yeah, it's awesome to see.
I mean, this goes back to your thing about like the Tennessee fan base and stuff like that. They looked like they kind of have a soft spot for Will Levis. If they're booing Willis like they were off one play, then they're gonna start a riot if Levis does not start next week. And
Levis has already been announced as the starter for next week. So
I was like, if I'm not mistaken, they play on they play on Thursday. So it'll be prime time as well. So this is a big game for Levis.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've looked at their schedule, but it's kind of an easy schedule. And if Levis can play as good as he did as the Falcons, we might be seeing a pretty good Titans team in the playoffs this year. And
I hope so.
They kind of looked like they were in rebuild mode after the trade deadline today, which is odd, but they could still actually finish the season with a very good record, which is funny. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking forward to next week. I just want to see if it was it just a fluke? Was there still some stuff that he needs to work on, or is he like just gonna be one of those players that ever come along every once in a while that just tears it up as soon as he gets a chance?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he does. I'm sure. Excuse me. I'm sure a lot of other people are too as well, and I know Kentucky fans are, because why wouldn't you be?
Right.
I know Louisville fans are probably dreading it, but hey, get over it.
I mean, yeah, it's the same thing with Lamar Jackson, dude. I mean, like,
Yeah.
even with my dislike for Louisville, I tell you what, if I'm cruising through the NFL games on the week or on a Sunday and I see that the Ravens are playing, I'll probably turn them on just because how entertaining Lamar Jackson is just to play football. Like I would watch him play all day.
Oh yeah, it's so fun to watch. It really is.
So,
But Parker, would you like to talk some trade deadline news?
yeah. Obviously, I know you brought it up earlier in the episode. The first thing, I kind of like making all the headlines. If you look, obviously it's why am I'm blanking on his name? Chase Young. Chase Young has been traded to the 49ers for what a lot of people are saying is a outright steal for a third-round pick. Again, I don't even know how this is possible. I don't know how you add such a talent like Chase Young to an already stacked team in San Francisco, but they did it. And it's just making that defense so much better than and filling crucial pieces that they needed. What do you see from it?
I mean, when I personally look at it, I think maybe they accepted a third because, like, maybe they tried asking for more, but the 49ers were saying, hey, look, this guy hasn't played a healthy season since his rookie season, and it's been 3 or 4 years now. The guy is injury prone. We'll give you a third, but that's the best we can do. And then I can see the Commanders just being like, yeah, whatever, sure, we'll take it. Because like I said, he has been injury prone. He's been healthy this year. He's done really good this year, actually. So, I mean, I don't really know. It was a questionable trade in my opinion. Definitely a steal by the 49ers. Especially if he stays healthy. I mean, that D-line is one of the best D-lines in the league, if not the best now.
Dude,
it's
on your right,
it's crazy.
Imagine being a quarterback, and on your right side, you're lining up, and on the right side, you see Nick Bosa, and you just directly turn to the right side, and you see Chase Young.
Yeah, and then you look in the middle, and you see Javon Hargrave. It's like
right, and their D line.
And then you look at the linebacker core. You look past the D line, and you see Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, and it's like, what's going on here? Like, what are we supposed to do?
I don't know how they're doing it. Like, they continuously to get like superstar talent, like elite talent, and I don't know how, one, they have the cap room for it, and two, like, I don't know why teams are letting them do this. Like the Commanders, you traded Chase Young to them. You accepted the third-round pick. You know that it's going to make them overpowered as fuck. Why would you do that? But, I mean, look, front office for the 49ers needs a big-time raise.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, I just want to mention, like, because my team made a couple moves today. They were pretty good moves. They weren't bad. Nothing I would, really argue with. Obviously, we went over the Josh Dobbs one already, but the second move and the only other move we made was we traded our young Pro Bowl offensive guard, Ezra Cleveland, to the Jaguars for, I believe, a 6th-round pick. I think it was his contract year, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think we were willing to pay him what he was asking for, so I think we just went ahead and got rid of him to kind of deal him off to another team that maybe would pay him, or just kind of a 1-year loan type of thing. He is very good, though. He is a very good offensive lineman, and to kind of lose value at the offensive line, especially with getting a brand new QB, it's kind of worrisome, but again, it was a smart move. He's young, so he had a lot of value. or a lot of like, it was easy to get rid of him is what I'm saying. But for the two moves we did make, they're acceptable, and I'm not too upset about them. I will say, I definitely thought we were gonna trade Daniil Hunter, but obviously we didn't. So maybe we're looking to extend him this offseason, or maybe we're just gonna let him walk into free agency. Not really sure what's going on with him, but I was definitely expecting to see a trade with him today, and that didn't happen. So
I was like, I did see you guys dealt one of your offensive linemen. I don't know what his name is off the top of my head. You guys to trade him for like a pick or something like that.
Ezra Cleveland.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that was one of the Vikings' biggest weaknesses was Cousins did kind of get beat up in that pocket. Madison, like I said earlier, he hasn't had the season that we expected him to have, especially with Dalvin Cook being gone. And then you ship off a O lineman, and it's this kind of question marks. You make all these other moves, but on top of that, you don't try to help your O line all that much as you are trying to almost hurt your O line. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We still have a decent O lineman. We still have 2 or 3 guys that are Pro Bowl level. So I don't think getting rid of one of them was too detrimental, but it definitely hurts because, I mean, for all things considered, we had a decent O line. Maybe not the best, but a decent one. And like I said, Ezra Cleveland's young, so he has a lot of promise. So, but yeah, we wish him the best in Jacksonville for sure.
Right. I did see a which, I mean, some people may not see it as that big of a trade, but I can see this as being pretty major, especially as the season continues on. But Donovan People-Jones goes to Detroit for a 6th-round pick. He is a solid receiver. Now, he doesn't have blow-you-away type of stats, but, I mean, we've seen it in the past. Back when he was, I believe he was in Green Bay. He really showed some spurts of being really good. And then he goes to Cleveland, and obviously they had a messed up quarterback situation. They can't really find that. I mean, Watson hasn't done his job all too well, especially compared to Houston. But Peoples-Jones, he kind of struggled a little bit, but now he's going to a electric offense in Detroit with a high-powered, a high-throwing aerial attack offense. Just add in another weapon to that already stacked wide receiver room could end up being really, really big, especially later in the season.
Yeah, I think it was more of a depth trade as far as like for the Lions
go. Yeah, definitely.
He could definitely play a part in that offense, and in my opinion, will probably play a part in the special teams department. I'm sure they'd probably put him at returner, maybe more than likely, I think. But yeah, not a bad trade at all for sure, because Donovan Peoples-Jones is definitely a good wide receiver.
Yeah.
The other trade I want to bring up is Montez Sweat being traded to the Bears from the Commanders. So the Commanders pretty much get rid of their entire D-line except for Jonathan Allen. And Montez Sweat going for a 2nd-round pick. So a better pick than Chase Young, which is definitely something that I didn't think would happen because in my opinion, I think Chase Young is probably better than Montez Sweat, but that could be an unpopular opinion as well. But I don't know. What do you think?
I knew the Commanders, obviously, they didn't have what it took to, especially defensive-wise. They've always struggled in defense. That even whenever they were, I think, like 2-3 years ago, when they had a pretty solid team offensively, it was their defense that held them back. But so their defense has always kind of been an issue. But then this year, the trade deadline comes and they just have a complete fire sale. They are just giving everybody up. They're just loading up on draft picks. The thing that as far as this trade goes itself, the thing that I want to kind of touch on is the Bears side. They gave up a second round pick, which could be it's pretty big. A second round pick is a lot, but you get someone like Sweat who is a much needed in that defense, that horrendous defense that they have. They have some good pieces, don't get me wrong, but they're not moving together as one giant team. It's just a bunch of individual pieces that are doing their own thing out there, I feel like. And whenever you bring in someone like Sweat who needs he can still grow, obviously. He's going to get better, but he can become such a vocal point of the Bears defense. And a serious threat, especially on that D-line. I think this is a great move for the Bears. And, I mean, I know like I said, they gave up a lot. They gave up a second-round pick, which is pretty detrimental, especially in the Bears situation where they need all the picks they can get. I like the move from both sides. I mean, if the Commanders are going to commit to doing a fire sale, then you got to commit. You can't just get rid of one or two pieces and be like, I don't want to get rid of him just yet. Like, if you're going to commit. And
which the Bears still have those 2 first-round picks too. So
right, and that could be
they still hold a lot of power.
Why that could be a reason why they were so lenient on getting rid of that second-round pick.
Yeah, because I mean they could get a ton from just even one of those picks. So
yeah, I think that just overall a fair trade in my honest opinion, especially for I shouldn't say especially, both sides. I mean, the Commanders, fire sale, they get another pick. Why not? The Bears get major help defensive-wise. I mean, I can't complain either way.
Yeah. And then there's 2 more trades I want to bring up that I find very interesting and I think help the teams very massively. The Seahawks trade for defensive tackle Leonard Williams from the Giants for a 2024 second-round pick and a 2025 fifth-round pick. And then... as much as it hurts to say this because they're already so fucking good, the Eagles trade for Kevin Byard from the Titans. And they give the Titans 2 2024 draft picks. I'm not entirely sure specifically what those picks were, but they also gave them a safety in return in Terrell Edmonds. And I think both of those trades benefit the receiving team very well.
Yeah, really quick, I want to go back to the Seattle trade for Williams. That was, if you look at their defense, which they have a pretty solid defense, if you ask me. Their defense does work pretty good together. Just a lot of good pieces in Seattle, but their one big hole that I saw that it's pretty obvious is the sacks. They don't have a lot of sacks. They don't get to and they just don't straight up get to the quarterback at all. And Williams is very good at getting to the quarterback. He's done it for as long as he's been in the NFL. So I think it's for not as many holes as Seattle has. This is such a good piece that I think is going to mesh very well for the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's definitely a great pickup by the Seahawks. Leonard Williams, he's not having the greatest season by any means necessary, just only a sack and a half, but I do think he's been dealing with some injury problems as well, though, so that's not entirely on him.
He doesn't have a lot of sacks, but if you also, I don't know if you have his stats pulled up, if you look at his quarterback pressures, how many times he pressures the quarterback, he is among, top 10 or something like that in the NFL.
Oh, okay.
So he gets to the quarterback, he just doesn't tackle him.
Right.
He just makes them get out of the pocket, which
a
is
lot of pressure,
pretty,
yeah.
I mean, which is, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like you said, whenever we started talking about it, not too much going on, no big time deals, not like McCaffrey going to the 49ers like last year.
That was
blew everything away.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a lot of small pieces moving around that can really be big pieces come December.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it definitely gave us like a grasp of like what teams are looking to do for the rest of this season and come the off season as well. I feel like I've mentioned them so much already this episode, but I mean, I definitely have a better grasp of what I think the Vikings are going to do this off season and for the rest of the season for that matter. So it definitely gave me like some, not closure, but a better idea of what teams are going to be looking for and doing for the rest of the season.
I mean, what do you think the Vikings are going to do this offseason? I mean, you don't think that Cousins are going to go back, but obviously they're making so many pieces. It looks like they're going to try to make the playoffs, so it's not like they're tanking for one of these top quarterbacks this year in the draft. What do you think their game plan is?
Yeah,
to me it kind of seems like they're stuck in the middle.
Yeah, I don't think we're tanking. I think it's pretty safe to say that. I don't think Minnesota is a team that would tank. But I think what's going to happen is if Josh Dobbs comes in, plays good, leads us to the playoffs, maybe gives us a playoff run, maybe not. I think depending on how he performs, I think we could be seeing Josh Dobbs. I think we could be seeing him being re-signed to a longer contract and sticking with Minnesota as QB1 for a couple years, which, depending on how he plays, unless he really impresses me, I might be really upset if that happens. But I can also see if Josh Dobbs doesn't perform up to standard, I can see us relegating him to the backup role and drafting a rookie that we can start day one. And I'm talking Drake May, Michael Penix, maybe even Shadir Sanders. I know that's kind of a hot topic name, but I could see it.
Whoa.
He's played good so far. He's had good games. He's had flashes, especially
against terrible defenses.
Against terrible defenses, yeah. Don't get me wrong, but there's always room to progress players, and it just we'll see what happens. But the thing is, though, is this upcoming draft class is so stacked with QBs and so many other players as well. Like, it's hard not to look at it and say, I really want to get one of these guys. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the free agency class is going to look like this year. I don't know who's going to be in free agency or who's going to resign, who's not going to resign. So I don't know who the best quarterback in the free agency class is going to be this year. So I mean, like you said, I mean, depending on how Dobbs finishes the season, if he makes the playoffs, if he doesn't make the playoffs, what he does in the playoffs if they do make it, Dobbs could be the answer. He really could be.
Yeah, he definitely could be. We see it so much. We see these things where QBs go to a team, they have a one-season wonder, and then they just fall off a cliff, and then that team is stuck with that QB for years, and I would be so devastated.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson. And I would be so devastated if that happened to us with Josh Dobbs. If he performed so well this season, and then we re-sign him to a long contract, and then next year he just shits the bed, and then we're stuck with him, I'd be so sad. Because not only do we lose an opportunity to take a top talent this year, but who knows if any of the QBs in the upcoming classes are going to be anywhere near as good as the top talent in this class. So, it would just suck. But now that the trade deadline talk is over, Week 9 is upon us. Week 9 is coming up this week, Parker. Do you see any matchups that you think will be good, that you think will be interesting? And what are they?
First one that is just kind of a must watch, just because of what happened last year. The Bengals and the Bills. Obviously, last time they played was the unfortunate incident for Damar Hamlin, and they ended up not even playing that game. They just called it off after that, and they never played it again. So this is the first time that they are matching up against each other since that injury, that whole thing took place. And the Bengals, which we saw it last week against the 49ers, they finally figured out their offense. They finally were able to put it all together, and they looked really, really good. They're going up against a Bills team who they're a good team, but they have also showed a lot of holes this season. They have yet to consistently play week in and week out good football. you know that Cincinnati, it's gonna be rocking there. It's probably gonna be cold too. So I mean, not that the Bills are not used to the cold weather, but it's gonna be rocking there. I don't know. Are the Bengals? Are they? I think they might be on a 3-game win streak. 2 or 3-game winning streak. If I had to put my money on it, I'm taking the Bengals all the way, just because they're playing so good. They're finally getting it together that we expected them to since week 1. It's taken them to get a little, and I think we said in the past, it could have just been injuries that kind of plagued them, but they're finally getting everybody healthy. They're putting it all together, and they're looking like that Super Bowl team 2 years ago now.
Yeah. I guess a game for me that I'm excited for is Dolphins Chiefs, because the Chiefs are coming off of a quite frankly embarrassing performance against the Broncos last week. So I'm wondering how pissed off they're going to be at their performance and how bad they performed, and I'm excited to see how they do. And Miami is coming off of their own bounce-back performance themselves after their embarrassing loss to the Eagles. Obviously they destroyed the Patriots, coincidentally by the same score that they lost to the Eagles by, which is very odd. I just the more I look at stats and stuff, the more oddities I find. It's super weird. But Miami's coming off of their own bounce-back game. The Chiefs are looking for their bounce-back game. Obviously, we know the history with Tyreek being a former Chief himself. It's an interesting game because I don't know necessarily how good both defenses are exactly, but I mean, as a Tyreek fantasy owner, I hope he torches the Chiefs.
And I don't know how much it plays a factor in, but they are playing in, I believe, Germany. I think they're playing in. I think so. I might be wrong on that, but I believe it's in Germany for that game as well. So that could also play a factor. Traveling, being in a different country.
Right.
I mean, who knows? Who really knows? That obviously those are just kind of just factors that I think about whenever I see stuff like that.
You have to. Yeah, you have to. With jet lag and, tiredness.
Right.
You'd think it would play a part, but.
I mean, you got you got one extremely electric offense in the Dolphins, and a team like the Chiefs that everybody wants to say they are a crazy offense, and they have showed spurts for it, but they have also showed a lot of struggles. Not being able to put points up on the board. Their offense just completely freezes. And again, I mean, there's only so much that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes can do. I mean, eventually they're going to double, triple cover Kelce, and Mahomes is going to have to look elsewhere.
Right.
Obviously, those receivers, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, they're not really putting up the seasons that everybody thought they were going to have, especially Sky Moore. I feel like he's been pretty disappointing this year compared to what we all thought he was going to be at the beginning of the season. But they show spurts of just not being able to score the ball whatsoever. If you want to talk about oddities, I'm actually looking at their schedule. So 2 weeks ago, the Chiefs and the Broncos played. The Broncos only scored 8 points. And then last week, the Broncos and Chiefs played again, and the Chiefs only scored 9 points. It's kind of just weird.
Yeah, that is weird. How did the Broncos only score 8 points? Did they get a safety? They must have gotten a safety.
That or they just went for 2.
Oh, right.
It was in the fourth quarter, so I'm sure they just went for 2.
Oh, okay.
At the end.
That's so weird. Going for 2 for no reason.
Right. But yeah, it's just I think what it's gonna come down to is how good does the Chiefs defense plays. Can they limit the Dolphins from scoring the ball at will like they have done all season long? And if they are able to do that, you're not going to shut out. That's one thing you're not going to do. You're not going to shut out the Dolphins at all. The Dolphins, their offense is just too good.
Right.
So, but if you can limit them to half of those points, that's going to put you in such a better position to win that ball game and let Mahomes does what he does best, and that is just to pull out wins.
Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs, when the Chiefs are on, they're on, and then they've shown their games where they're just off. And I will say, Patrick Mahomes, I'm pretty sure he played the last game with the flu, which is kind of questionable. I don't know why he would. It's not like having a flu game in basketball. Football is arguably more physical. It takes more physicality out of you.
Whoa! That is not arguable. Football is what? Football is so much more physical.
Well, I don't want to upset some basketball fan out there that might be like, "Yeah, basketball is way more physical than football." I just don't want to upset somebody who may be sensitive towards basketball. I'm about equality here, Parker.
Basketball or football to basketball is equivalent to saying tennis is just as physical as basketball. It's the same thing. It's just like it's night and day.
All right. Well, honestly, thank you for helping my argument. Then, I don't know why he would play with the flu in a game that takes so much out of you when you already have so much out of you to begin with. I don't know if that added or contributed to their loss. Like, I don't know if I'm going to say that's why they lost the game, but it's definitely weird why they might have decided to play him. But, with the guy like Mahomes, you can kind of read it on him. He's a leader. He doesn't want the team to, see him a different way, or, he wants to be there for his guys. He wants to be there for the boys. Make sure he can help them win at all costs. And, sometimes though, you just got to decide or tell yourself, like, hey, maybe this isn't the one, but. Right.
I'm going to hurt you more than I'm going to help
right,
you.
Exactly. So it's just, yeah, but I'm excited for that game for sure. Week 9's got a few games in there that I'm excited for. I'm definitely excited for fantasy because I lost both leagues this week. So I'm definitely looking for a bounce back game in both leagues that I'm in, and I'm looking to continue my season because I look pretty good in both of my leagues I'm in. So
I went 2-2 this week. Obviously in a league that I'm in with you, my team is just still in shambles. I tried a new method this week, and I wasn't going by projected points. I was going by matchups. That did not help. That did not. That I thought I was really gonna do something there. I mean, I was sitting. What's his name? Miles Sanders. Which that was a good choice. But Miles Sanders was projected 14 points, and I started Jalen Warren over him, who was projected 9 points. That is a case that it actually did help because just playing off matchups. Miles Sanders didn't have a single rushing yard. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to hope that I can sneak into the playoffs. I got to get a couple more wins, especially until Jettas comes back. And now with Kirk Cousins being out, who knows what Jettas is going to be at all. So, I might just have to write this league off if I don't turn it around here soon.
Well, hopefully you could turn it around because, that would just be better for the both of us and the energy as far as fantasy talk goes. I know I would like if you made the playoffs because some people below you are quite cocky as far as making the playoffs goes. So it'd definitely be interesting. But
I'll tell you right now, don't let me get in these damn playoffs. Do not let me get into the playoffs, because if I get into the playoffs, I'm winning the thing. I mark my words. If I get into the playoffs, I will win the entire thing. Don't let me get into playoffs.
All right, well, Parker, I think that's gonna do it from us here for this episode. You got anything else to add or say?
Happy Halloween.
Yeah. Happy Halloween.
I don't think we mentioned it once today. Now it's.
I'm sure there's nobody trick or treating now, but
But yeah, but when we got on the phone here, I still had people coming up to the door and stuff like that. So I mean, happy Halloween. I hope everybody stayed safe. And it was cold. It was extremely cold here in Louisville.
Oh fuck.
So yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to continuing this. We're back. We're stronger. We took a little week break, but Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, and if you haven't noticed by now, we have a new logo. So hopefully you guys like it. If you don't, then that kind of hurts our feelings, but it is what it is, I guess. But
right.
Hopefully you guys like it, and if you do, let us know somehow. Like the video, like the podcast, or leave a comment saying, "Hey, nice logo," or
Cool logo.
yeah, cool logo. And we might, like your comment. But anyways, that's gonna do it from us here at the Take His Whistle podcast. I have been Josh. This has also been Parker. And we thank you guys for listening, as always.
Peace.
See you guys.